Jesse's back hits the feed room wall. Two identical giants block the only exit, storm gray eyes burning with hunger. The 17-year-old stable boy trembles as Wade's hand slides down his chest. "Please," Jesse finally breaks, voice raw with desperation. "I need you to touch me." Before we dive in, comment where in the world you are watching from, and don't forget to click subscribe. The dust settled around the wagon wheels as 17-year-old Jesse Thorne stood in chains before the Twin Peaks ranch, his heart hammered against his ribs, each beat a reminder that his life had just been sold for $60 and a bay mare. The man who had raised him, the same man who had gambled away every cent they owned, had shaken hands with the ranch foreman that morning and ridden away without looking back. Jesse had watched him disappear into the horizon, knowing he would never see that coward again. Good riddance. But now, standing in front of the largest ranch house he had ever seen, Jesse felt something cold settle in his stomach. Fear, yes, but something else too. Something that made his skin prickle and his breath catch when two figures emerged from the house, moving in perfect sync like mirror images of raw power and danger. The Garrison twins. Jesse had heard the whispers in town, the way women's voices dropped low when speaking their names, the way grown men shifted uncomfortably and changed the subject. Wyatt and Wade Garrison, 28 years old, standing 6.5 feet tall, built like they could break a wild stallion with their bare hands. Identical in every way that mattered, dark hair, storm gray eyes, and a presence that made the air itself feel heavier. They owned everything for 50 miles in every direction. Cattle, horses, land, water rights, and now, apparently, him. Jesse tried to stand tall despite the chains, tried to meet their eyes with something like defiance. But when those twin gazes locked onto him, studying him with an intensity that made him feel stripped bare, all his courage fled. He was nothing but a skinny stable boy with calloused hands and second-hand clothes, sold like livestock to men who looked at him like they were deciding exactly how they planned to use him. Wyatt spoke first, his voice a low rumble that seemed to vibrate through Jesse's chest. "The boy. He is smaller than I expected." Wade circled slowly, boots crunching on gravel, eyes never leaving Jesse's face, but strong enough for stable work. "Look at those hands. He has spent his life with horses." Jesse felt heat creep up his neck as Wade's gaze traveled down his body, assessing, cataloging, claiming. It was not the casual glance of an employer. It was something far more dangerous. Something that made Jesse's pulse race, for reasons he did not want to examine. The foreman stepped forward, keys jangling as he unlocked the chains. Jesse rubbed his wrists, red marks already forming where the iron had bitten into skin. Wyatt moved closer, so close Jesse could smell leather and smoke and something darker, something that made his head swim. "You will sleep in the bunkhouse with the other hands," Wyatt said. "You will work the stables, tend the horses, and follow every order we give you." Wade stepped up beside his brother, completing the circle, trapping Jesse between them. "Every order," he repeated, his voice dropping lower. "Without question, without hesitation. Do you understand what you have agreed to, boy?" Jesse opened his mouth, but no sound came out. He had not agreed to anything. He had been sold, traded, passed from one set of hands to another like a piece of property. But standing between these two giants, feeling the heat radiating from their bodies, sensing the coiled power in their stillness, Jesse understood that objection was not an option. He swallowed hard and managed a single word. "Yes." Wyatt's hand shot out, gripping Jesse's chin, tilting his face up into the fading sunlight. Those storm gray eyes searched his, looking for something Jesse did not understand. "When you address us," Wade said from behind him, his breath hot against Jesse's ear, "you will call us sir." Jesse's entire body went rigid. The hand on his chin tightened fractionally, not enough to hurt, but enough to make the point crystal clear. These men would accept nothing less than complete submission. "Yes, sir," Jesse whispered, hating how his voice shook, hating the way his body responded to their proximity, with a confusion of terror and something else. something that made his skin burn and his thoughts scatter like startled birds. "Good boy," Wyatt murmured, releasing his chin, but letting his fingers trail along Jesse's jaw, in a gesture that felt far too intimate for an employer. "We are going to teach you exactly what it means to belong to us." Wade's hand settled on the back of Jesse's neck, firm and possessive, steering him toward the bunkhouse. "And you are going to learn that obedience," he said, his lips brushing the shell of Jesse's ear. "Can feel better than you ever imagined." Jesse stumbled forward, his legs suddenly weak, his mind reeling. What had he just walked into? What did these men want from him? And why did some traitorous part of him, some hidden corner of his heart that had never seen sunlight, want to find out? The bunkhouse was a long wooden building that smelled of hay and sweat and years of hard labor. Inside, a dozen ranch hands looked up from their card games and whiskey bottles, eyes narrowing as Wade pushed Jesse through the door. "This is Jesse," Wade announced to the room. "He belongs to us now. Any man who touches him answers to me and my brother personally." The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Men who had been lounging suddenly sat up straighter, eyes averted, hands carefully placed on tables where they could be seen. Jesse understood immediately. Whatever the Garrison twins wanted, they took, and they had just declared him off limits to everyone except themselves. "Your bunk is in the corner," Wyatt said, pointing to a narrow cot beneath a dusty window. "You start work at dawn. Wade will show you the stables tonight." Jesse nodded mutely, clutching the single bag that held everything he owned. He made his way to the bunk, feeling every eye in the room tracking his movements. As soon as the twins left, the whispers started. "Poor bastard. You see the way they looked at him? He will not last a month." Jesse sat on the thin mattress, heart still racing, trying to make sense of what had just happened. He had expected hard work, yes, harsh conditions certainly. But this feeling of being hunted, of being claimed, of standing on the edge of something vast and terrifying that he could not name, this he had not been prepared for. Night fell quickly in the high country. Jesse barely had time to splash water on his face before Wade appeared in the doorway, silhouetted against the purple twilight. "Come," he said simply. Jesse rose on shaking legs and followed. The walk to the stables felt like a journey to the gallows. Wade said nothing, his long strides forcing Jesse to half-run to keep up. The stable was larger than the house Jesse had grown up in, 2 stories of beautiful timber construction housing at least 40 horses. The scent of hay and leather and horseflesh wrapped around him like a familiar blanket, the first moment of comfort since he had arrived. Wade lit a lantern, warm light spilling across the central aisle. "This is your domain," he said, gesturing to the rows of stalls. "You will keep it cleaner than a church. You will know every horse by name, by temperament, by the sound of their breathing in the dark. And when we call for you, no matter what hour, you will come." Jesse nodded, running his hand along a stall door, already cataloging which horses needed attention, which tack needed mending. This, at least, he understood. This he could do. Wade stepped closer, crowding him against the wooden slats. "But tonight," he said, his voice dropping to that dangerous register that made Jesse's pulse skip, "you're going to learn something else." Jesse's breath caught. "What?" Wade's hand came up, fingers threading through Jesse's hair, grip firm but not painful. "You're going to learn that when we give an order, your body obeys before your mind even processes the words." Jesse tried to step back, but the stall door pressed against his spine, trapping him. Wade leaned in, so close their faces were inches apart, and Jesse could see flecks of silver in those gray eyes, could feel the heat rolling off the larger man's body in waves. "Strip," Wade commanded. Jesse's eyes went wide. "What?" Wade's grip tightened in his hair, tilting his head back. "I said strip. We need to see what we bought." Shame and fury warred in Jesse's chest. "I am not a horse to be inspected." Wade's free hand caught Jesse's wrist, pinning it against the stall door. "No," Wade agreed, his voice soft and deadly. "You are not a horse. Horses have value. You were sold for $60 and a half-lame mare, so unless you want to find out just how worthless that makes you, you will do as you are told." The words cut deeper than any blade. Jesse felt tears prick his eyes but refused to let them fall. He would not give this man the satisfaction. Slowly, hands trembling with humiliation and something else he refused to name, Jesse began to unbutton his shirt. Wade released him, stepping back to watch, arms crossed over his broad chest. The shirt fell to the hay-strewn floor, then the undershirt. Jesse's skin prickled in the cool night air, every nerve ending suddenly alive and aware. The belt, the trousers, until he stood in nothing but his drawers, feeling more exposed than he had ever felt in his life. Wade circled him slowly, the same way he had that afternoon, but this time, there was no barrier of clothing to hide behind. Jesse felt the weight of that gaze on his shoulders, his back, his legs, assessing every flaw, every weakness. "Turn around," Wade ordered. Jesse turned. Jaw clenched so tight his teeth ached. Wade stepped close again, and this time his hand settled on Jesse's bare shoulder, fingers tracing the line of muscle there. "You have worked hard," Wade murmured, almost to himself. "Lean but strong, fast hands, good instincts with the horses." Jesse closed his eyes, trying to ignore the way his body responded to that touch, the way heat pooled low in his belly, despite the humiliation burning in his throat. Wade's hand slid down his arm, examining, claiming, and when it reached Jesse's wrist, he lifted it, studying the calluses there. "These hands," Wade said softly, "are going to serve us well, in the stables, and elsewhere." Jesse's eyes flew open. "What do you mean?" Wade smiled, and it was not a kind expression. It was the smile of a man who knew exactly what he wanted, and had no doubt he would get it. "You will find out soon enough. For now, get dressed. Be in the main house at sunrise. My brother wants to see you." Jesse scrambled for his clothes, yanking them on with shaking hands. Wade watched the entire time, that same assessing gaze, that same small smile playing at his lips. When Jesse was dressed, Wade reached out and cupped his face, thumb brushing across his cheekbone in a gesture that was almost tender. "You are ours now, Jesse. The sooner you accept that, the easier this will be." He turned and walked out, leaving Jesse alone in the lamplight, heart pounding, skin still burning from places where Wade had touched him. Jesse sank down onto a hay bale, head in his hands. What kind of hell had he been sold into? And why, despite everything, did some twisted part of him want to know what came next? Sleep did not come easy that night. Jesse lay on his narrow bunk, listening to the snores and mutters of the other ranch hands, replaying every moment of the day, the way Wyatt had gripped his chin, the way Wade had commanded him to strip, the heat in their eyes when they looked at him. He had heard stories, whispered late at night in the stables back home, about men who preferred the company of other men, about what they did in the darkness, things that made Jesse's face burn even to think about. But those had been stories, distant and unreal. This was happening to him, now, and the Garrison twins had made their intentions terrifyingly clear. Dawn came too soon. Jesse dragged himself out of bed, splashed icy water on his face, and made his way to the main house. His stomach churned with anxiety. What would they demand of him today? Wyatt was waiting on the wide front porch, coffee cup in hand, looking like he had been awake for hours. Jesse climbed the steps, keeping his eyes lowered. "Good morning, sir," he said, proud that his voice did not shake. Wyatt set down his cup and stepped closer, studying Jesse's face. "Did you sleep?" "No, sir." "Good. That means you were thinking about what my brother told you, thinking about what it means to belong to us." Jesse said nothing. What could he say that would not damn him further? Wyatt reached out, fingers gentle as they tilted Jesse's face up. "Look at me, boy." Jesse forced himself to meet those storm-gray eyes. Wyatt's expression was unreadable, a mixture of possession and something that might have been concern. "You are afraid," Wyatt observed. "Yes, sir." Wyatt's thumb brushed across Jesse's lower lip, and Jesse's breath hitched. "Good. Fear keeps you sharp, but you are also curious. Curious about why we bought you, about what we want." Jesse felt heat flood his face. "I do not," he started, but Wyatt's finger pressed against his lips, silencing him. "Do not lie to me. I can see it in your eyes, in the way your body responds when we touch you. You have never been with anyone, have you?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Jesse wanted to deny it, wanted to preserve some shred of dignity, but Wyatt's gaze pinned him in place, demanding honesty. "No, sir," Jesse whispered. "Never." Wyatt's smile was slow and satisfied. "Perfect. Come inside. I want to show you something." Jesse followed him through the door, into a house that smelled of coffee and wood smoke, and something else, something masculine and overwhelming. The main room was dominated by a massive fireplace. Comfortable chairs, shelves lined with books, civilized, normal. And yet Jesse felt like he had just walked into a lion's den. Wyatt led him down a hallway to a closed door. He pushed it open, revealing a bedroom that made Jesse's breath catch. The bed was enormous, covered in furs and thick blankets. Heavy curtains framed windows that looked out over endless prairie. And standing by the window, already dressed for the day, was Wade. He turned as they entered, eyes locking onto Jesse with that same predatory intensity. Jesse froze in the doorway, suddenly understanding. One room, one bed, both brothers. Wade crossed the room in 3 long strides, coming to stand beside Wyatt. Together, they formed a wall of muscle and power that made Jesse feel impossibly small. "This is where you will come," Wyatt said, his voice low and intimate. "When we call for you. This is where you will learn what it means to surrender, to serve, to feel pleasure you never imagined possible." Jesse's heart slammed against his ribs. "I am here to work the stables," he managed, his voice barely above a whisper. Wade laughed, a dark, rich sound. "Oh, you will work the stables. But you are here for so much more than that. We have wanted someone like you for a long time, Jesse. Someone untouched. Someone we can shape, teach, claim completely. Someone who belongs only to us." Wyatt's hand settled on the back of Jesse's neck, warm and possessive. "We are not cruel men," he said. "We will never force you, but we will seduce you, tempt you, make you crave what we offer until you are begging us for it." Jesse's legs felt weak. This could not be happening. Things like this did not happen in real life. But the heat of their bodies, the scent of them surrounding him, the way his own body responded despite his fear, all of it was terrifyingly real. "What if I refuse?" Jesse asked, hating how his voice trembled. Wade leaned in, lips brushing Jesse's ear. "Then you will spend every day watching us, wanting us, burning with curiosity about what you are missing. And eventually, when the ache becomes too much, you will come to us on your knees, begging us to teach you." Wyatt's fingers tightened on his neck. "But we are patient men. We can wait. The question is, how long can you resist?" Jesse pulled away, stumbling back toward the door. "I need to go. The horses." Wade's smile was knowing. "Run if you need to, little one. We will be here when you are ready." Jesse fled, down the hallway, out the door, across the yard to the stables, where horses nickered in greeting, and the familiar work could distract him from the chaos in his mind. But even as he mucked stalls and filled water troughs and checked hooves for stones, he could feel their eyes on him, watching from the house, waiting, knowing that it was only a matter of time before curiosity overcame fear, before the ache Wade had promised began to burn. 3 days passed. 3 days of backbreaking work in the stables, of keeping his head down, of avoiding the main house. 3 days of lying awake at night, replaying their words, their touches, the promise in their eyes. 3 days of his body betraying him with dreams that left him gasping and ashamed when he woke. On the 4th morning, Jesse was working in the tack room, mending a broken bridle, when Wade appeared in the doorway. No greeting, no preamble, just that steady gaze that seemed to see straight through him. "You have been avoiding us?" Wade observed. Jesse kept his eyes on the leather in his hands. "I have been working, sir." Wade stepped into the small room and suddenly the space felt impossibly cramped. Working, hiding, same thing. Jesse set down the bridle with hands that shook slightly. "What do you want from me?" Wade moved closer, backing Jesse against the workbench. "I want you to stop running from what you feel. I want you to admit that you think about us, that you wonder what it would be like, that you lie awake imagining our hands on your skin." Jesse's face burned. "You're wrong." "Am I?" Wade's hand came up, fingers ghosting along Jesse's jaw. and Jesse hated how his body leaned into that touch, craving more. "Your mouth says no," Wade murmured, "but your body tells a different story." Jesse tried to pull away, but the workbench trapped him. Wade's other hand settled on his hip, holding him in place. "Let me go." Wade's smile was slow and dangerous. "Make me." The challenge hung between them. Jesse's heart pounded. He could feel the heat radiating from Wade's body, could smell leather and smoke and something uniquely him. It would be so easy to give in, to let this happen, to discover what they were offering. And that terrified him more than anything. "Please," Jesse whispered, not even sure what he was asking for. Wade's expression softened fractionally. "You are not ready yet," he said, but his hand remained on Jesse's hip, thumb stroking slow circles that made Jesse's breath hitch. "But you are getting closer. I can feel it. When you are ready, when you cannot stand the not knowing anymore, you will come to us, and we will show you everything." He stepped back, releasing Jesse, and the sudden absence of contact felt like a loss. "Tonight," Wade said, turning to leave, "you will join us for dinner in the main house. 8 o'clock. Do not be late." It was not a request. Jesse watched him go, legs shaking, body still thrumming with unfulfilled need. He was in so much trouble. That evening, Jesse stood outside the main house, trying to gather his courage. Through the windows he could see candlelight, could smell something delicious cooking. Normal, civilized. He could do this. It was just dinner. He knocked. Wyatt opened the door, and Jesse's breath caught. The man had cleaned up, changed into a fresh shirt, hair still damp from washing. He looked devastating. "Come in," Wyatt said, stepping aside. Jesse entered, hyper-aware of how close they stood in the doorway, of how Wyatt's gaze traveled down his body before meeting his eyes again. "You cleaned up." "Yes, sir." "Good boy." The word sent a shiver down Jesse's spine. Wade appeared from the kitchen, also cleaned up, also looking at Jesse like he was something to be devoured. The table was set for 3, plates and silverware arranged with care, almost like this was a real dinner, a normal evening, except nothing about this was normal. "Sit," Wade said, gesturing to a chair between the 2 head seats. Jesse sat, feeling trapped as the twins took their places on either side of him. Dinner was roasted chicken and vegetables, simple but delicious. Jesse tried to focus on his food, but he was intensely aware of every movement the brothers made, every glance they exchanged, every time their legs brushed his under the table. The conversation was surprisingly normal. They asked about his work with the horses, about his life before coming to the ranch. Jesse answered carefully, revealing little, but Wyatt's gentle questions and Wade's sharp observations slowly drew him out. By the time the meal ended, Jesse found himself almost relaxed, almost forgetting why he was really there. Then Wyatt pushed back his chair and stood. "Come with me." Jesse's pulse jumped. "Where?" Wyatt's smile was patient. "Somewhere you need to see." Jesse rose on unsteady legs, following Wyatt while Wade brought up the rear, effectively boxing him in. They did not go to the bedroom. Instead, Wyatt led him outside, across the yard to a small building Jesse had not noticed before. He unlocked the door and gestured Jesse inside, a bathhouse. Steam rose from a large wooden tub, already filled with hot water. Candles flickered on shelves, casting warm light across tile and timber. It was the most luxurious thing Jesse had ever seen. "You've been working hard," Wyatt said. "You deserve to relax." Wade began unbuttoning his shirt. "We all do." Jesse's eyes went wide as Wade stripped off his shirt, revealing a chest sculpted by years of hard labor. Wyatt followed suit, and Jesse found himself staring at 2 bodies that could have been carved from stone, all muscle and power and masculine beauty. "Get in," Wade said, nodding toward the tub. Jesse did not move. They were going to bathe, together, with him. This is too much," Jesse stammered. "I cannot." Wyatt stepped closer, expression gentle. "You can, and you will, because deep down, you want this. You want to know what it feels like to let go, to be cared for, to be wanted." Jesse's resolve crumbled. He was so tired of fighting, so tired of being afraid. Slowly, heart hammering, he began to undress. The water was perfect, hot enough to make his muscles melt, scented with something herbal that cleared his head. Jesse sank into it with a sigh, trying not to think about the fact that he was naked in a tub with two equally naked men, whose bodies he could not stop looking at. Wyatt settled on one side of him, Wade on the other, close enough that their legs brushed his. "Relax," Wyatt murmured, and his hand came up, soaped fingers beginning to work the tension from Jesse's shoulders. Jesse's eyes fluttered closed despite himself. The touch was firm, skilled, finding every knot and working it loose. Wade's hand joined in, washing Jesse's other arm, his back, his chest, and Jesse found himself floating in sensation, unable to think, unable to resist. "This is what we want to give you," Wade said softly, his hand sliding down Jesse's side. Pleasure, comfort, the feeling of being cherished. Jesse's head fell back against the edge of the tub, completely undone by their gentleness. "Why me?" he whispered. Wyatt's lips brushed his temple. "Because the moment we saw you, we knew. You were ours. We have been waiting for you." Jesse's eyes opened, finding Wyatt's face inches from his own. The hunger there was unmistakable, but it was tempered with something else. Tenderness. Wade's hand cupped Jesse's face, turning him. "When you are ready," he said, his thumb brushing Jesse's lip, "we are going to kiss you. We are going to touch you everywhere. We are going to make you ours in every way that matters, and you are going to beg us for more." Jesse's breath came fast and shallow. "I do not know how," he admitted, the confession torn from him. "We will teach you," Wyatt promised, "everything." Jesse looked between them, at these two powerful men who wanted him, who had been patient with him, who were offering something he had never dared to want. The fear was still there, but beneath it, growing stronger every moment, was desire, need, the desperate curiosity to know what would happen if he just surrendered. "Not tonight," Wade said, reading his expression, "but soon, very soon." They finished bathing him in silence, hands gentle and thorough, and when Jesse finally stood from the water, they wrapped him in warm towels, dried him with care that made his throat tight. The walk back to the bunkhouse felt different than before. Jesse was acutely aware of every point where the towel brushed his skin, still tingling from their touches. The night air was cool, but he burned from within, his body humming with unfulfilled promise. Wade walked on his left, Wyatt on his right, close enough that he could feel the heat radiating from their bodies. No one spoke. The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken want. When they reached the bunkhouse steps, Jesse turned to face them, clutching the towel around his waist. "Thank you," he managed, his voice hoarse, "for the bath, for being patient with me." Wyatt's hand came up, cupping Jesse's face with a gentleness that made his chest ache. "We will always be patient with you," Wyatt said softly, "but do not mistake patience for lack of desire. We want you so badly it takes every ounce of control we have not to claim you right here, right now." Wade stepped closer, his hand settling on Jesse's hip through the towel. "Every night you spend in that bunkhouse instead of in our bed is torture," Wade added, his voice rough. "Every moment we watch you work, watch you move, watch that beautiful mouth form words, and know we have not tasted it yet. It drives us mad." Jesse's breath hitched. "Then why wait? Why not just take what you want?" Wyatt's thumb stroked across his cheekbone. "Because when you finally come to us, when you finally surrender, we want it to be your choice. We want you desperate for it, aching for it, begging for it. We want you to want us as badly as we want you." Wade's hand tightened on his hip. "And we want you to remember, for the rest of your life, that moment when you stopped fighting and let yourself feel everything." Jesse trembled between them, torn between the safety of fear and the terrifying allure of surrender. "What if I am never ready? What if I am too afraid?" Wyatt leaned in, his lips brushing Jesse's forehead in a gesture so tender it made his eyes sting. "Then we will wait forever," Wyatt whispered. "But I do not think that will be necessary. I can see it in your eyes. You are close. So close." Wade's hand slid up Jesse's side, fingers tracing his ribs through the towel. "Tomorrow," Wade said, his voice low and intimate, "you are going to wake up aching. Your body is going to remember every place we touched you tonight. And you are going to spend all day thinking about what it would feel like if we touched you everywhere else." Jesse made a sound, half whimper, half moan, and both brothers smiled. "Sleep well, little one," Wade murmured, stepping back. "Dream of us?" They turned and walked away, leaving Jesse standing on the bunkhouse steps, trembling and wanting and absolutely wrecked. He stumbled inside, ignoring the curious looks from the other ranch hands, and collapsed onto his bunk. Wade had been right. Jesse woke the next morning aching in ways he had never experienced before. Every muscle felt tender, sensitized, alive with memory. He could still feel the ghost of their hands on his skin, could still smell the herbal scent of the bathwater mixed with leather and masculine musk. His body betrayed him, responding to mere memory with a need so intense it made him gasp into his pillow. The other ranch hands noticed his distraction at breakfast. "You feeling all right, kid?" the foreman asked, eyeing Jesse's flushed face and trembling hands. Jesse nodded mutely, unable to form words, unable to think about anything except strong hands and storm-gray eyes and promises that made his whole body burn. The day passed in a haze. Jesse went through the motions of his work, but his mind was elsewhere. Every time he bent to lift something, his body remembered being lifted from the water. Every time he stretched to reach for tack, he remembered hands exploring his back, his shoulders, his chest. By midday, he was so distracted that he nearly got kicked by a nervous mare. "Pay attention, boy," one of the older hands snapped. "You're going to get yourself killed." Jesse forced himself to focus, to push thoughts of the twins from his mind. But it was impossible. They were everywhere. In the stable office, reviewing ledgers. In the breaking pen, working with a young colt. Leaning against the fence, watching him with eyes that saw everything. Knew everything, promised everything. That afternoon, Jesse was in the feed room, counting sacks of oats, when he heard the door close behind him. He spun around to find both twins blocking the exit, identical expressions of dark hunger on their faces. His heart slammed against his ribs. "Sirs," he managed, hating how breathless he sounded. "We have been watching you all day," Wyatt said, moving closer. "Watching you struggle to concentrate. Watching you jump at every sound, watching your body respond to the memory of last night." Jesse backed up until he hit the wall of grain sacks. "I am fine," Wade laughed, low and dangerous. "You are anything but fine. You are wound so tight you are about to snap." Jesse tried to sidestep, but Wyatt caught his wrist, pinning it against the wall beside his head. "Let us help you," Wyatt murmured. "What do you mean?" Jesse's voice came out as a whisper. Wade pressed against him from the other side, effectively trapping him. "You are aching," Wade said softly. "Your body wants relief. We can give you that. Here. Now." Jesse's eyes went wide. Here? Anyone could walk in. Wade's hand slid down Jesse's chest, coming to rest just above his belt. "That is part of the thrill," Wade breathed. "The danger. The possibility of being caught." Jesse's resolve crumbled. He was so tired of fighting, so tired of denying what he wanted. "Please," he heard himself whisper. Wyatt's free hand cupped his face. "Please what, Jesse? Tell us what you need." "I need," Jesse's voice broke. "I need you to touch me. I need to stop thinking. I need to feel something other than this constant ache." Wade's smile was pure satisfaction. "Good boy," he praised. "Finally asking for what you want." His hand moved lower, and Jesse gasped, head falling back against the grain sacks. Wyatt captured his mouth in a kiss that was nothing like the gentle caresses in the bathhouse. This kiss was hungry, demanding, consuming. Jesse opened for him helplessly, letting Wyatt take whatever he wanted, while Wade's skilled hand worked magic that made his vision blur. The pleasure built quickly, too quickly, and Jesse broke the kiss to gasp for air. "That is it," Wyatt encouraged, his voice rough. "Let go. Let us see you come apart." Wade's other hand gripped Jesse's hip, steadying him as the pleasure crested. Jesse bit down on his own fist to keep from crying out, body shaken as wave after wave of release crashed over him. When he could finally breathe again, when his legs stopped trembling enough to support him, Jesse found both twins watching him with expressions of dark satisfaction. "Beautiful," Wade murmured, pressing a kiss to his temple. "Absolutely beautiful." Wyatt's hand stroked through his hair. "Tonight," Wyatt said, his voice leaving no room for argument. "Tonight you come to our room. No more waiting, no more fear. Just you and us and everything you have been dreaming about." Jesse could only nod, boneless and sated and completely undone. "Yes," he whispered. "Tonight." They cleaned him up gently, straightened his clothes, made him presentable. Then they left him there, leaning against the grain sacks, trying to remember how to think, how to breathe, how to be anything other than utterly and completely theirs. The rest of the day passed in a blur of anticipation and terror. Jesse could barely eat dinner. The other ranch hands shot him knowing looks but said nothing. Everyone knew where he would be tonight. Everyone knew what would happen. As the sun began to set, Jesse washed as best he could in the cold water of the bunkhouse basin, changed into his cleanest clothes, tried to calm his racing heart. This was it. No more running. No more hiding. Tonight he would surrender completely, would discover what it meant to belong to two men who wanted him with an intensity that still stole his breath. Tonight he would stop being Jesse Thorne, the boy sold for $60, and become someone new, someone claimed, someone cherished, someone loved. This was seduction. This was temptation. And Jesse knew, as he walked across the yard toward the main house under a sky full of stars, that he was already lost. Jesse lay awake that night, skin still tingling from where their hands had touched him in the bathhouse. Every nerve ending felt alive, awakened to sensation he had never known existed. The memory of Wade's fingers tracing his shoulders, Wyatt's gentle touch washing his back, the heat of their bodies pressed close in the steaming water, it all played through his mind in vivid detail. He tried to tell himself it meant nothing. They were just being kind, helping him clean up after days of hard work. But he knew that was a lie. The way they had looked at him, touched him, promised him things that made his heart race and his body ache with unfamiliar need. That was not kindness. That was possession, claiming. And the most terrifying part was how much he wanted to be claimed. The next morning dawned gray and cold. Jesse dressed quickly, trying to ignore the lingering soreness in muscles he had not known he had, trying not to think about strong hands needing tension from his shoulders. He made his way to the stables, grateful for the familiar routine. Horses did not look at him like they wanted to devour him. Horses were simple, honest, safe. He was mucking out the fourth stall when he heard boots on the wooden floor. His whole body tensed, knowing without looking who it was. "Jesse," Wyatt's voice, low and intimate. "Come here." Jesse straightened slowly, pitchfork still in hand, trying to steady his racing heart. "Yes, sir." Wyatt stood in the doorway, backlit by pale morning light. He wore work clothes today, sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms corded with muscle. "Put that down and come with me. We need your help with something." Jesse set aside the pitchfork and followed, trying not to notice how Wyatt's presence seemed to fill the space around him, trying not to remember what that body had looked like in candlelight, water droplets sliding down bare skin. They walked toward the breaking pen where Wade waited, leaning against the fence rails. In the center of the pen stood the most beautiful horse Jesse had ever seen. A black stallion, wild-eyed and trembling, coat gleaming like polished obsidian. "Fresh from the Mustang catch," Wade said as Jesse approached. 4 years old, never been broke, dangerous as hell. We need someone with a gentle hand to work with him. Jesse's breath caught. "You want me to break him?" Wyatt moved to stand beside his brother, the two of them flanking Jesse again, that familiar position that made him feel surrounded, claimed. "We want you to gentle him," Wyatt corrected. "There is a difference. Breaking means dominance through force. Gentling means earning trust." Wade's hand settled on Jesse's shoulder. "We think you understand that distinction." Jesse looked at the stallion, saw the fear and fury in those dark eyes, the way the animal trembled with the need to run. He understood that feeling all too well. "I will try," Jesse said quietly. "Good," Wyatt murmured, and his hand brushed the small of Jesse's back in a gesture that felt like approval, like pride. "Take your time. We want him to choose submission, not have it forced on him." The words hung heavy with double meaning. Jesse swallowed hard and climbed into the pen. For the next 3 hours, Jesse worked with the stallion. He did not try to touch him, did not try to corner him. He simply stood in the center of the pen, talking softly, letting the horse get used to his presence, his scent, his voice. Slowly, so slowly, the stallion's trembling eased. His ears flicked forward, listening. His eyes lost some of their wildness. From outside the fence, Wyatt and Wade watched. Jesse could feel their gazes on him, studying, assessing. He tried to focus on the horse, but his awareness of them was overwhelming. Finally, as the sun climbed high overhead, the stallion took a step toward Jesse, then another. Jesse held perfectly still, barely breathing. The stallion's soft nose brushed his shoulder, warm breath ghosting across his neck. Trust, tentative and fragile, but real. Jesse slowly raised his hand, and the stallion allowed the touch, allowed Jesse's fingers to stroke his velvet muzzle. Beautiful, Wade's voice carried across the pen. Absolutely beautiful. Jesse was not sure if he meant the horse or something else. When he finally climbed out of the pen, muscles aching, face flushed with triumph, both brothers were smiling. "You have a gift," Wyatt said, handing Jesse a canteen of water. "The way you handled him, patient, gentle, never forcing. That is rare." Jesse drank deeply, suddenly aware of how thirsty he was, how the sun had burned his skin despite the cool morning. Wade stepped closer, so close Jesse could feel the heat radiating from his body. "You understand now," Wade said softly, "why we chose you." Jesse met his gaze, saw the hunger there, the barely leashed desire. "You see me like that horse. Something to be gentled." Wade's hand came up, fingers threading through Jesse's sweat-dampened hair. "No," he murmured. "We see you as someone worth the patience it takes to earn trust. Someone worth waiting for." Wyatt's hand settled on Jesse's hip, warm and possessive through the fabric of his work clothes. "But make no mistake," he said, his voice low and rough. "We will have you, Jesse. Completely. We are just giving you time to realize you want it too." Jesse's legs went weak. The canteen slipped from his fingers, water spilling into the dust. He was surrounded by them again, caught between their bodies, drowning in the scent of leather and male musk and something darker, headier. "I should get back to work," Jesse managed, his voice barely above a whisper. Wyatt's grip on his hip tightened. "Look at me," Jesse forced his eyes up, found Wyatt's face inches from his own. "Tell me you do not think about us," Wyatt challenged. "Tell me you do not lie awake imagining what it would feel like if we touched you, if we kissed you, if we made you ours in every way possible." Jesse's breath came fast and shallow. He opened his mouth, but no denial came out. He could not lie, not when his body was already responding, not when heat pooled low in his belly just from their proximity. Wade's hand cupped the back of his neck, thumb stroking the sensitive skin there. "You are so close to surrendering," Wade breathed against his ear. "I can see it in your eyes, feel it in the way you tremble when we touch you. What are you afraid of, little one?" "Everything," Jesse admitted, the word torn from him. "What if I am not what you want? What if I disappoint you? What if this ruins me for anything else?" Wyatt's free hand came up to cup Jesse's face, forcing him to meet that storm-gray gaze. "You could never disappoint us," Wyatt said fiercely. "And as for ruining you," he smiled, slow and dark, "that is exactly what we intend to do. We are going to ruin you for anyone else, make it so you crave only our touch, only our voices, only the pleasure we can give you." Jesse made a sound, half whimper, half moan, and Wade chuckled low in his throat. "There it is," Wade murmured. "That is what we have been waiting to hear, the sound of you giving in." Jesse's hands came up, bracing against Wyatt's chest, feeling the solid muscle beneath the fabric, the steady thunder of his heartbeat. "Please," Jesse whispered. "Please what?" Wyatt asked. "Tell us what you need." "I don't know," Jesse confessed, and it was true. He had no words for this ache, this desperate need that had been building for days. "I don't know what to ask for." "Then let us show you," Wade said, and his lips brushed the shell of Jesse's ear, sending shivers racing down his spine. "Tonight. Come to our room tonight. No more waiting, no more fear. Just trust us to take care of you." Wyatt's thumb stroked across Jesse's lower lip, and Jesse's eyes fluttered closed at the sensation. "Say yes," Wyatt commanded softly. Jesse knew if he said yes, everything would change. There would be no going back, no pretending this had not happened, no rebuilding the walls he had spent years constructing around his heart. But those walls were already crumbling, had been since the moment these two men looked at him and saw something worth wanting. "Yes," Jesse breathed. "Tonight." The smile that spread across Wyatt's face was pure satisfaction. Wade's hand tightened on his neck, not painful, just possessive. "Good boy," Wade praised. "We're going to take such good care of you." They released him then, stepping back, and Jesse nearly collapsed without their support. His whole body felt like it was vibrating with anticipation and terror in equal measure. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Jesse went through the motions of his work, feeding horses, mucking stalls, mending tack, but his mind was elsewhere, on tonight, on what they would do to him, on how his body would respond. When the dinner bell rang, he could barely eat. The other ranch hands noticed, exchanging knowing glances, but no one dared comment. Everyone knew the Garrison twins had claimed him. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of blood and gold, Jesse stood outside his bunk, heart pounding. He had washed, changed into his cleanest shirt, tried to tame his unruly hair. Now there was nothing left to do but walk across that yard, knock on that door, and surrender to whatever waited on the other side. His feet carried him forward before his mind could talk him out of it. The main house loomed before him, windows glowing with warm light. Jesse climbed the steps, each one feeling like a step toward his own undoing. He raised his hand to knock, but the door opened before his knuckles touched wood. Wade stood there, barefoot, shirt untucked, looking at Jesse like he was a feast laid out just for him. "You came," Wade said, satisfaction rich in his voice. Jesse nodded, not trusting himself to speak. Wade stepped aside. "Wyatt is waiting." Jesse entered, and the door closed behind him with a finality that made his pulse jump. The main room was empty, just dying embers in the fireplace casting dancing shadows on the walls. Wade's hand settled on the small of his back, guiding him down the familiar hallway to that bedroom, that enormous bed covered in furs and blankets. The door stood open, candlelight flickered within. Jesse's steps faltered. Wade leaned in close, lips brushing his temple. "Scared?" "Terrified," Jesse admitted. Wade's arm came around his waist, solid and reassuring. "We will go slow," Wade promised. "We will make it good for you. And if you truly want to stop, if it becomes too much, you just say the word, and we stop. Do you understand?" Jesse nodded, some of the fear easing. They had been patient with him, gentle. They would not hurt him. At least, not in any way he did not want. Wade guided him through the doorway. Wyatt stood by the window, watching the last of the sunset fade. He turned as they entered, and the look on his face made Jesse's knees weak. Pure hunger, barely controlled, tempered only by the promise of patience. "Come here," Wyatt said, and Jesse went, pulled by a force stronger than gravity. Wyatt's hands settled on his shoulders, warm and grounding. "How do you feel?" "Like I might shatter," Jesse confessed. Wyatt's smile was gentle. "You will not shatter. You are stronger than you know, but you will break apart in the best way possible. We will make sure of it." Wade moved behind Jesse, hands settling on his hips, and Jesse was caught between them again, surrounded by heat and strength and overwhelming masculine presence. They began slowly, carefully. Wyatt's fingers worked the buttons of Jesse's shirt while Wade's hands slid beneath the fabric, exploring the planes of his back, the dip of his spine. Jesse trembled, overwhelmed by sensation, by being touched by two people at once, by hands that knew exactly what they were doing. The shirt fell away, then the undershirt. Wade's lips found the back of Jesse's neck, pressing soft kisses that made him gasp. "You are beautiful," Wyatt murmured, his hands mapping Jesse's chest, thumbs brushing across sensitive skin in ways that made Jesse arch into the touch. So responsive. Wade's hands worked Jesse's belt, the button of his trousers, and Jesse's breath came faster. This was happening. This was real. The trousers fell away, leaving him bare except for his drawers. And he felt more exposed than he had in the bathhouse, because this time he knew what was coming. Wyatt stepped back, eyes roaming over Jesse's body with unmistakable appreciation. Wade pressed against him from behind, letting Jesse feel the evidence of his arousal. The heat and hardness that spoke of desire barely held in check. "Feel what you do to us," Wade breathed in his ear. "Feel how much we want you." Jesse did feel it, and the knowledge that these powerful men desired him so desperately sent a rush of heat through his body. Wyatt began stripping off his own clothes, revealing that body Jesse had glimpsed in the bathhouse, now fully on display in candlelight. Wade did the same, and Jesse found himself caught between two naked men, their bodies pressed against him, skin on skin, overwhelming and perfect. They guided him to the bed, laying him down on furs softer than anything Jesse had ever felt. Wyatt settled beside him, propped on one elbow, while Wade stretched out on his other side. Mirror images, perfectly synchronized, two halves of one overwhelming whole. "We are going to touch you now," Wyatt said softly. "Everywhere. We are going to learn every sound you make, every place that makes you gasp, every way to make you come undone." Jesse could only nod, already trembling with anticipation. They began with kisses. Wyatt leaned in, capturing Jesse's mouth in a kiss that started gentle but quickly deepened, became hungry, demanding. Jesse had never been kissed before, did not know what to do with his mouth, but Wyatt guided him patiently, licking at the seam of his lips until Jesse opened for him, then sweeping inside to taste and claim. Meanwhile, Wade's mouth worked down Jesse's neck, across his collarbone, finding sensitive places that made Jesse arch and moan into Wyatt's kiss. It was too much sensation, too much pleasure. Jesse felt like he was drowning in it, losing himself completely. Wyatt pulled back, breathing hard. "Good," he praised. "So good, Jesse. You taste like heaven." Wade's mouth moved lower, kissing down Jesse's chest, his stomach, making him gasp and writhe. Wyatt's hands joined in, stroking, caressing, learning every inch of Jesse's body. When Wade's mouth moved even lower, when he pulled away the last barrier of fabric and took Jesse into the wet heat of his mouth, Jesse cried out, back arching off the bed. The sensation was beyond anything he had imagined, waves of pleasure so intense it bordered on pain. "Easy," Wyatt murmured, his hand soothing on Jesse's chest. "Let yourself feel it. Let go." Jesse could not have held on if he wanted to. Wade's skilled mouth worked magic, bringing Jesse to the edge faster than he thought possible. Wyatt's mouth found his again, swallowing his desperate sounds, while his hand tangled in Jesse's hair, holding him steady. The pleasure built and built until Jesse thought he might die from it, until his whole body was taut as a bowstring, trembling on the edge of something vast and terrifying. And then Wade did something with his tongue, something that sent Jesse flying over that edge into white-hot bliss that wiped every thought from his mind. He came apart completely, lost in wave after wave of sensation, dimly aware of Wyatt's voice praising him, Wade's hands gentling him through it. When he finally came back to himself, gasping and boneless, both brothers were looking at him with expressions of pure satisfaction. "Beautiful," Wade murmured, pressing a kiss to Jesse's hip. "You are absolutely perfect." Jesse's face burned, but he could not find it in himself to be embarrassed, not when his body still thrummed with aftershocks of pleasure, not when they looked at him like he was something precious. "But we're not done yet," Wyatt said, his voice rough with need. That was just the beginning. Jesse's eyes widened. He did not know if he could survive more, did not know if his body could take it. They positioned him carefully, Wyatt beneath him, Wade behind, and Jesse understood with a jolt what they intended. Both of them. Together. His heart hammered with renewed fear. "I do not think I can," Jesse started, but Wyatt cupped his face, forcing him to focus. "You can," Wyatt said with absolute certainty. "We will prepare you, take care of you, make sure you are ready, trust us." Jesse looked into those storm-gray eyes and found himself nodding. He did trust them. They had been nothing but patient, nothing but gentle. even as their hunger for him burned in every touch. What followed was a slow, careful claiming that pushed Jesse to his limits and beyond. Wade's fingers prepared him with slick oil, working him open with infinite patience, finding places inside him that made him see stars. Wyatt kissed him through it, swallowed his gasps and moans, whispered praise and encouragement. By the time Wade pressed inside him, Jesse was trembling, overwhelmed, certain he could not take more. But Wade moved slowly, carefully, giving him time to adjust, and the fullness, the stretch, the sensation of being claimed so completely, it transformed from discomfort into something else entirely, something that made him clutch at Wyatt's shoulders and beg for more. Wyatt's hands steadied him as Wade began to move, each thrust sending sparks of pleasure through Jesse's body. Then Wyatt positioned himself as well, and Jesse gasped at the impossible sensation of being filled by both of them, caught between their bodies, claimed in the most complete way possible. They moved together, perfectly synchronized, two halves of one overwhelming whole, taking him higher and higher until Jesse lost all sense of where he ended and they began. The pleasure built again, different this time, deeper, more intense, rolling through him in waves that left him gasping and mindless. Their voices surrounded him, praising him, telling him how good he felt, how perfect, how much they wanted him. Jesse felt treasured, claimed, utterly possessed in the best possible way. When the pleasure crested this time, it took all three of them, bodies moving together in perfect rhythm, voices joining in shared release. Afterward, they collapsed in a tangle of limbs and sweat-slicked skin, all three of them breathing hard. Jesse lay between them, boneless and sated, more content than he had ever been in his life. Wade's hand stroked lazy patterns on his hip. Wyatt's fingers combed through his hair. "You are ours now," Wade murmured, pressing a kiss to Jesse's shoulder. "Completely and utterly ours." Jesse should have been frightened by the possessiveness in those words. Instead, he felt only relief, after years of belonging to no one, of being passed from hand to hand like unwanted property. He finally had a place. These men wanted him, would protect him, would care for him. "Yes," Jesse breathed. "Yours." Wyatt pulled him closer, tucking Jesse against his chest. "And we are yours," Wyatt promised, "for as long as you want us." Jesse fell asleep there, wrapped in their arms, warmer and safer than he had ever felt. When he woke in the gray light of dawn, he was alone in the enormous bed. Panic seized him for a moment. Had it all been a dream? Had they taken what they wanted and left him? Then he heard voices from the main room, the smell of coffee and bacon drifting down the hallway. Jesse rose on shaky legs, body deliciously sore in places that made him blush to think about. He pulled on his discarded clothes and made his way toward the voices. Wyatt and Wade stood at the stove, working together to prepare breakfast, moving in that synchronized way they had. They looked up as Jesse appeared in the doorway, and matching smiles spread across their faces. "Good morning," Wyatt said warmly. "How do you feel?" "Sore," Jesse admitted, face heating, hungry. Wade crossed the room, pulling Jesse into a kiss that was tender and claiming all at once. "Good. Come eat. We have a long day ahead of us." Jesse sat at the table, accepting the plate of food Wade set before him. It felt surreal, sitting here in their kitchen, eating breakfast like this was normal, like his whole world had not just been turned upside down. Wyatt sat beside him, hand settling possessively on his thigh beneath the table. "The stallion will need more work today," Wyatt said. "And the fence line on the north pasture needs mending," Jesse nodded, trying to focus on work, trying to pretend his whole body was not still humming with the memory of their hands, their mouths, their bodies claiming his. "We expect you to continue your duties," Wade added, sitting on Jesse's other side. "But your nights belong to us now." Jesse's breath caught. "Every night?" Wyatt's hand squeezed his thigh. "Every night," he confirmed, "unless you would prefer to move into this house permanently." Jesse's eyes widened. "You want me to live here?" Wade's smile was slow and satisfied. "We want you where we can reach you, where we can touch you whenever we please, where you can share our bed every night." Say yes, Jesse. Jesse looked between them, at these two powerful men who wanted him so completely. A week ago, he had been a piece of property, unwanted and unloved. Now he was being offered a home, a place, a belonging he had never dared hope for. Yes, Jesse said, and the word felt like a vow. The twins exchanged a look of pure triumph. Then it is settled, Wyatt said. You are ours now, in every way that matters. The weeks that followed fell into a pattern that felt like a dream. Jesse spent his days working with the horses, particularly the black stallion who slowly, steadily learned to trust him. He mended fences, worked the stables, earned the respect of the other ranch hands through skill and hard work. But his nights belonged to Wyatt and Wade. They explored him thoroughly, taught him pleasure he had not known existed, pushed him to limits he had not known he had. They were demanding but never cruel, possessive but never careless. They treasured him, protected him, made him feel valued, in ways that had nothing to do with his body, and everything to do with who he was. Jesse bloomed under their attention, confidence growing, the haunted look fading from his eyes. He laughed more, smiled more, allowed himself to believe that good things could last. One evening, 3 months after he had first arrived at Twin Peaks Ranch, Jesse stood in the breaking pen with the black stallion. The horse followed him now, responded to the slightest touch, trusted him completely. Wyatt and Wade leaned against the fence, watching. You have done well with him, Wyatt called. Jesse smiled, stroking the stallion's neck. He just needed someone to be patient with him, someone to show him that trust could be rewarded. Wade's expression turned knowing. Sounds familiar. Jesse laughed, climbing out of the pen. The stallion nickered, following him to the fence. Are you comparing me to a horse? Wyatt pulled Jesse close, kissing him thoroughly. If the shoe fits. But seriously, Wade added, his hand settling on Jesse's hip in that possessive way Jesse had come to crave. You understand now why we chose you, why we wanted you. Jesse looked between them, at these two men who had claimed him so completely. I think so. You saw someone who had been broken down, who needed gentling instead of more force. You were patient. Wyatt's hand cupped his face. We saw someone worth waiting for, he corrected. Someone who would bloom with the right care. And we were right. Jesse felt his throat tighten with emotion. 3 months ago, he had been sold like property, had stood in chains believing his life was over. Now he stood here, claimed by two men who looked at him like he was precious, who had given him a home and purpose and something that felt dangerously close to love. Thank you, Jesse said softly, for seeing me, for wanting me, for being patient. Wade kissed his temple. Thank you for trusting us, for letting us care for you, for being ours. Jesse leaned into them, these two solid presences who had become his whole world. The ranch hands had stopped giving him pitying looks weeks ago. Now they treated him with respect, recognized that the Garrison twins' claim was not a curse, but a blessing. Jesse helped with the accounts now, had a say in which horses they bought, had become part of the ranch in ways that went beyond warming their bed. He had found his place, his purpose, his home. As the sun set over Twin Peaks Ranch, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, Jesse stood between Wyatt and Wade and felt for the first time in his life that he belonged. Not because he had been bought, but because he had been chosen. Not because he was property, but because he was treasured. The three of them walked back to the house together, and Jesse knew that whatever the future held, he would face it with these two men beside him. That night, lying in their bed, bodies tangled together in sated contentment, Jesse spoke the words he had been holding back for weeks. I love you, both of you. The silence that followed made his heart clench with fear. Had he said too much, assumed too much? Then Wyatt's hand found his in the darkness, fingers lacing together. We love you too, Wyatt said, his voice rough with emotion. From the first moment we saw you. Wade's arm tightened around Jesse's waist. You are not just someone we desire, Wade added. You are ours to protect, to cherish, to love for as long as we live. Jesse felt tears prick his eyes, but this time they were tears of joy. He had been sold for $60 and a half-lame mare, but he had found something worth more than all the gold in California. He had found home. The black stallion, whom Jesse had named Shadow, became a symbol of his transformation. Where once the horse had been wild and terrified, now he was gentle and trusting. Where once Jesse had been broken and afraid, now he was confident and loved. The parallel was not lost on anyone at Twin Peaks Ranch. As the seasons changed and Jesse's first year at the ranch drew to a close, Wyatt and Wade made their claim official in the eyes of the law. They could not marry him. The law did not allow for such things, but they made him a legal partner in the ranch, equal owner of everything they had built. Jesse Garrison, the papers read, and seeing his name linked with theirs, made something settle deep in his chest. He was not Jesse Thorne anymore, the boy who had been sold like cattle. He was Jesse Garrison, co-owner of the largest ranch in 3 territories, partner to 2 men who loved him, home at last. The other ranch hands threw a celebration in the bunkhouse, toasting to Jesse's new status. Even the grizzled old foreman, who had watched Jesse arrive in chains, raised his glass. To Jesse Garrison, he said, "One hell of a horseman and one lucky son of a gun." Jesse laughed, accepting the good-natured ribbing, secure in the knowledge that he had earned their respect through hard work and skill. Not just through sharing the boss's bed, though truth be told, he thought as Wyatt and Wade stood on either side of him, their hands resting possessively on his shoulders, he was the luckiest man alive. To have been broken down, sold off, left for dead, and to have risen from those ashes into this life, this love, this belonging, that was worth more than any amount of money. As the party wound down and they walked back to the main house under a sky full of stars, Wade pulled Jesse close and kissed him deeply. "Happy?" Wade asked. "Deliriously," Jesse admitted. Wyatt wrapped his arms around both of them. "Good, because we plan to keep you that way for the next 50 years at least." Jesse laughed, allowing himself to be pulled inside, to be led to their bedroom, to be loved thoroughly and completely by the 2 men who had claimed him. And as they moved together in the darkness, 3 bodies joining in perfect synchronization, Jesse understood that he had not just been bought that day he arrived at Twin Peaks Ranch. He had been saved, redeemed, given a second chance at life, and he intended to spend every moment of that life showing Wyatt and Wade exactly how grateful he was. Years later, when people asked how Jesse Garrison came to co-own the largest ranch in 3 territories, he would smile and give a simple answer. "I was in the right place at the right time." But in his heart, he knew the truth. He had been in chains, broken and afraid, when 2 men had looked at him and seen something worth saving. They had been patient when he needed gentling, fierce when he needed protecting, loving when he needed cherishing. They had taken a boy sold for $60 and made him into a man who owned the world, and every night, when he lay between them in the bed they shared, feeling their hearts beat in rhythm with his own, Jesse Thorne Garrison thanked whatever force had brought him to Twin Peaks Ranch, because sometimes the worst day of your life can lead you to the best thing that ever happened to you. Sometimes being sold can set you free, and sometimes the men who buy you are really the ones who save you. That is the truth Jesse Garrison carried in his heart until his dying day, surrounded by the 2 men who loved him and the ranch they built together. Proof that even in the harsh and unforgiving West, love could bloom where you least expected it, fierce and true and forever.